So if I'm going to write a book, right, I have to cover not just bits and pieces and going and coming into the middle of something and putting my own spin on it. Now I got to trace it all the way back to the beginning, whatever that beginning is, because even the beginning isn't really the beginning. It's just where our society has picked up on and doesn't factor in what happened even before the beginning. So what is the beginning? Well, it isn't Genesis. It's not in the Bible. That's like a beginning, but that's not where I'm going. You have to understand who runs the world, the Rosicrucians. And it took me a minute to research. First of all, we had to know who the Rosicrucians were and are. We had to know what they were made up of. Jewish mysticism, Christian Gnosticism, and Hermeticism, which is Egypt and Greece. Okay, and then we had to figure out why is it that when I went to the Rosicrucian Museum in San Jose, it was all about the pharaohs. It was all about Egypt, King Tut, or Imhotep, Ashkenaz, and whatever. And then even the movies, like The Mummy, was all about Imhotep. And then why China has an issue with the Dalai Lama in Tibet. Yeah, you're revering children. That's essentially what is going on. Now, I don't want to discount and take away the fact that Imhotep had other inventions, other areas of which he was extremely smart in, like architecture. He was a builder. He was a priestess. Well, priestess comes from you glorifying yourself as some kind of god or a deity, and then you ask people to worship you because you have smarts. But where did he get his information from? Because you're not just born and then you wake up knowing architecture, alchemy, how to be a deified god so people worship you. You don't just wake up and know this. Something had to have taught him all of this, to where then he became and rose in the ranks and became chancellor to, now I don't know how, I've heard the name Dozer, the pharaoh of the time. Okay? So where did Imhotep learn all of his skill sets? Now you can go back to say, oh, it was Ra. It was all these gods that were, like Osiris. I mean, you hear all the different gods, the pagans that talk about the different gods of the Rosicrucians or of Egypt. But like, where is Ra? I don't see Ra. I don't see Anubis. Like, we don't see Zeus. We don't see Aphrodite. Well, we do see them in people who are taking on the genetic characteristics of what we think would be someone who'd be like Aphrodite or Zeus or Hermes or Atlas. Okay, I mean, just look at all the different Hollywood stars. Even look at your high school class. Some people take on characteristics so well, they look like a Greek god. They look like the quintessential clone that would represent an industry or a company, and people would follow them because they are beautiful, well put together. They have all the different genetics and the characteristics that is symmetrical, that then attracts people. That's why companies look for specific prototypes, of which why colleges then cultivate those prototypes. And then you also see in the porn industry, the sex industry, the health and wellness industry, the cultivation of the hormones. And then you see women look like they are Aphrodite. They're looking to have sex right now and be the mother as well as be your sex goddess. Okay, so you see how our system has been constructed based upon, we can go all back to Imhotep because I don't know anything before Imhotep. He was a commoner. Was he really a commoner? Well, that's what they say. Am I a commoner? Yeah, I'm a commoner. I've taken information from past people, figured out my own thought process, put something together, and then eliciting a different outcome. So where did Imhotep learned all of his ABCs and 1, 2, 3s when you think about it? You'll never know. And that's the mystery of it all. And that's what I want you guys to keep tracing back. Because remember, we were asking where Socrates learned all of his stuff. Socrates came way later after Imhotep, even after Hammurabi. And so the Greek mythology, history, whatever. Yeah, you had the Aegean Greek history, which was, like I said, Troy and all of that. But then you have the ancient Greek. So there's two Greek civilizations. One that came out of the 27th century, 26th century, whatever, back in Imhotep days. But really, the Greek system where you had Socrates and Plato and all of that, they came out of ancient Greece, which is really way later in the 4 BC, where Jesus Christ and the Romans, the Greco-Roman era and all of that. And so they learned how to deify people. They learned how to snow ignorant people. They learned how to manipulate hormones through the humors, through the alchemy. And then you have Shakespeare, okay, the playwrights. Then you have your different physicists and your ethologists and your biologists just within the last couple 100, 200, 300 years. And then you have all the religions that come thereafter. And so when you're taking on a new religion like Mormonism, like Jehovah's Witness, like any of the newfangled religions that came out of the 1800s, which really isn't that long ago, then you're like, okay, have you been snowed into a belief system? Have you been snowed into being a child? When the Tibetan monks are asking people to worship a child, the Dalai Lama, who came into political power when he was 15, does he have enough life experience, or was he a puppet for somebody else? That's why people revere children, because somebody else is pulling the strings, who's not really they're older by years, but they're still taking on the characteristics of someone who was 20 years old. Okay, like Imhotep. And then, yeah, you have the kings and the queens and the pharaohs and the different council that self-proclaim themselves to be the leader because they have more knowledge, because when you keep somebody ignorant, you keep them under fucking control. And I even heard that when I watched I Killed My Father on Netflix. Because he was kept under control. He was kept ignorant by his dad. He was kept away from society. He was kidnapped by his own dad from his mother and was brought somewhere over in Texas, and his mom was in Louisiana. She didn't have the funds to go and find him. He wasn't put in any school system, so his name wasn't out there. And so the kid was saying, and thank God the kid actually got off and didn't get a life sentence, because they had to take his whole childhood into account. But he said, when you keep somebody ignorant, you keep massive control over them. And that's exactly what Imhotep did back in the Pharaoh days. That's exactly what happened ever since the rise and fall of all these civilizations, and even today. But people pride themselves in ignorance. They pride themselves in ignorance. They're lost in their love, 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 hate, 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 anxiety, and the politics, religion, and science dogmas. And so they're being guided to only a certain amount of information, but they have no desire to learn anything but what is being fed to them, baby spoon-fed to them, like a child. And so when you are revering children like Imhotep, who was only 20 years old, yes, he had some information, but it still is being regurgitated today. We haven't evolved from Imhotep. And then you're worshiping a Tibetan monk who is only 15 years old. Now you see where our society has come from, where we're going, and why you're seeing the fall of so many different civilizations, even in the West, because we have children raising children and people that have no interest in learning anything but what is spoon-fed to them by their friends, their family, politics, religion, science, and worshiping somebody, whether it's Trump, Biden, Obama, or Jesus Christ, or whoever else. And then you're like, what the hell? No wonder our society's so messed up. Children raising children. And then we're only taking information from someone who's only been around for 20 years. So when you think about collectively, like I said again, collectively, the medical holistic system is only 20 years old. Yeah, they may have refined the way they go and find other antibiotics and do a splicing and dicing and dilute it so it's not so deadly. But that's just trial and error. That's just human experimentation. Now look in your society and see how many people have suffered from the human experimentation from all the antibiotic usage, where the FDA puts it out in the market, says, hey, it's great, and then they have to pull it because it's not great anymore. And then the next generation of children whose parents were taking those medications, antibiotics, messed up their own genome. And then you have kids with deformities, kids with cognitive issues, kids with issues. And so, no, we haven't graduated or even evolved from imhotep. We just keep repeating the same fucking mistakes and then think that we're going to do anything different. Each generation thinks, oh, we're going to reinvent the wheel. And they do reinvent the wheel every fucking generation. And so at some point, humans have to evolve, like I said again. So let me read this. And so that's why I have an aversion to anyone that drops scripture, because they're just regurgitating. All they're doing is just reading whatever's in a textbook. And the Bible is a textbook, no different than your textbooks in college. When they're telling you, here's a problem, here's a solution, and then you're just regurgitating that. No different than saying, oh, yes, Genesis and this, and then people dropping scripture left and right. You're like, that's not even your words. You sound like a robot. And so, yeah, it really irritated my demons, because I know exactly where religion came from. It came from worshiping children and then martyrizing somebody who may have something to say, yes, because he had all the different knowledge. He studied all the different knowledge. Jesus Christ studied all the different knowledge ever since Imhotep. And there's many rise and fallen civilizations and contributions to humanity. And Jesus Christ learned some stuff, and so did Socrates and Plato. And then you see all the worship of the Greek system. You see the academia cover Western civilization. And of course, the theologian schools are all about worshiping someone from the past. And there's so many words attached to all these different belief systems. And so then you get lost in the dogma, you get lost in the words, you get lost down the rabbit holes of religion, of politics, and science. And then you still die anyways. So why the Rosicrucians are all about the Egyptian mummies and the pharaohs, and yes, the Greek system. And so, yeah, I mean, Imhotep learned, where did Imhotep learn all his stuff? We know where Socrates learned his stuff. Now we know where Socrates and Plato learned their stuff. It's a compilation of Egypt and Sumer and all the different civilizations and the thinkers of their time, and all the writings and the things that they've uncovered through excavation and whatever. So, you know, it's great that we do take on Socratic methods and all of that. But Hippocrates wasn't really anything that great, because he was just taking cues again from a 20-year-old, from a child. And so there was no immortality even back in antiquity. They just kept the ideas immortal, but the person wasn't immortal. If anything, he was mummified. There was some kind of curse. They were saying that he was cursed. Who was he? Imhotep. He was mummified. And I don't know. I mean, you can read, you can look it up. But then there's movies about him reincarnating, coming back as an evil curse and all that stuff. And so there's all that mythology that goes along with that. But when you think about it, Imhotep was just a man that had extensive knowledge. Where he got it from, who the fuck knows? Will you ever know? No, there's no way you'll ever know. And even if we did know, then where did they learn it from? And then where did they learn from? And you just keep going back and back and back. And then what's the point when you think about it? Because it's all the same stuff regurgitated, repackaged, remarketed differently. And then, of course, again, every generation who dies and reproduces, they keep reinventing the wheel. And so with all the antibiotics that was used on me and used on the population, Now you see COVID and the frequencies, because the new paradigm of the environment, because of CERN, Wi-Fi, HARP, now you're seeing people come down with some major aggressive issues. Some people can hold their body together because they don't have as many, because they didn't come into this world with many diseases. But then you see people who have stuff lurking in their biochemistry, just waiting for the right moment to come out and pounce. And then now you're seeing, just watch your Facebook and all the news articles about people either in a coma from meningitis. I had that meningitis. I had that pain in the back of my neck. I had the stiff neck and the headache and whatever. But thank God that I figured out my alimentary canal to release more of the demons that would have probably turned it into something aggressive. Do I want to thank God? No. I say it as just a saying. Thank gosh, thank whatever. Thank the freaking environment that gave me all the information for me to figure out how not to end up like the people who have cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, in comas, on ventilators, who are all about the love and the hate and the anxiety and the depression and the funny, and so again, facing the pain and sitting with it and knowing that you can survive it, that's the intelligence that is missing ever since Imhotep. He had the intelligence from where we don't know again, but the slave mentality back in the Egyptian days was huge, because yes, they say that the Jews were slave back in Exodus. Okay, that's why the whole thing with Moses and the parting of the sea and the firstborn and Passover. Okay, so we know that story of Exodus and Passover and all that. And so we know the pharaohs and the chancellors and the priests of those times were finding ways to enslave people and keep them enslaved and keep them ignorant. And antibiotics and the fear and threat of bodily harm was the perfect way to keep slaves under control. And then that translated into Babylon. Then that was when Hammurabi even made the fear of bodily harm and everything else as a punishment for making mistakes. And of course, I'm sure he used antibiotics. And so we're in a new world order. We're now going into a new world order, and you can either play the same game that Hammurabi and Imhotep played as far as enslaving your children and yourself with antibiotics and not feeling pain, or you can fucking face the pain, not deal with any more antibiotics, get away from the medical holistic system, and learn how to release your own demons without using aggressive elements from the holistic and the allopathic people who are trying to save you and sell you a fucking dream. Oh yeah, we understand why the antibiotics and why all of the different modern medicine exists, because you have beautiful people selling people things they don't need. Selling people who have overproduced children, selling them houses, selling them cars, selling them clothes, selling them all this shit. And so how do you get a salesman to sell shit? Well, they have to look perfect. They have to look well put together. They have to look like a clone from the academic system. And they'll carry it well for however long, but you know what's in it for them. They can only be cured for so long. And then all of a sudden, a beautiful man, a beautiful woman comes down with something aggressive. And then they go and have all their they have all their charities of, oh, here, donate to the Lymphoma Society, donate to the Autism Society, donate to the Lupus Society. Yeah, trying to find another antibiotic, another cure to compound the issues for the future generations. That's the loop in the mainstream. That's the loop of their own self-destruction. So that's why Hammurabi was honored for his keeping law and order. And then the medical system, biotech, has perfected antibiotics and perfected how to keep someone together for a certain amount of time until they can't anymore, until that person falls apart. That's pretty grim. That's pretty grim. So, so now we know where I'm going to originate from, Imhotep, and then, yeah, Hammurabi, and then Hippocrates. And then, you know, the whole worshipping people, and then all the emotions, all the love and the hate and everything that keep people connected and together, and then going down the ship with each other, using love and sex and all of that as a source of control. And then it's all about the body. Forget the mind, because the mind's going because people are neurologically inept and they are dumbed down by the antibiotics and the medicines and the surgeries and everything else. And that's why these children are falling apart, because their parents are falling apart. And so if you want to give your kid half a chance, you got to get away from all those influences. And if you want to try to fit into the mainstream, your child will end up going down the ship sooner, because they have your predispositions. They're in a new environment with your predisposed issues. You think they're going to be able to last that long in this world right now with the way CERN and Wi-Fi and HARP, how aggressive those frequencies are with their predisposed issues, and your fear of feeling pain, and you're not willing to change, and you're trying to fit into an old world that isn't really, they still exist, but it's diminishing. It is going down. Fallen kingdom. So, yeah. So yeah, I had to study the Greek history, the Greek mythology, and then I had to go even study, you know, Sumer and all the Anunnaki, and then study the Rosicrucians. I studied it all, figured out where they are in history, who came first, who came second, who came third, and then realized, yeah, the Greek system, Hippocrates, Plato, they were piggybacking on the Egyptians, but who taught the Egyptians? That's what I want to know, but you'll never know it. All right, bye.